Hello and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And today we're joined by Joseph Delaney, author of the celebrated Spook series, otherwise known as the Wardstone Chronicles, one of which was adapted into the film Seventh Son in 2014. Joseph, thank you very much for joining us today. So not many people may know this, but I was actually one of your pupils when you taught film studies at Blackpool Sixth Form College back in, it must be, about 15 years ago now, something ridiculous.
Wow. 2004 was when we said bye-bye.
Oh, God, yeah, you're making me feel old now. But yeah, you definitely were the catalyst for my passion about film, so I definitely, Matt and Mike Pull Focus wouldn't be a thing if it weren't for your few months teaching me, so I appreciate that. You introduced me to films such as The Wicker Man, original, not the Nicolas Cage one.
Not the Nick Cage remake,
Not the Nick Cage remake, no. But also The Lost Boys, and the film you decided to speak about today, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Can you just go into a bit of why you were so interested in teaching us that kind of genre?
Well, because, maybe it's because I was born weird. I just like horror. I like fantasy. I like science fiction. Those are my genres. That's what I'd read for myself if I wasn't writing the stuff, you see. But as soon as I watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's film, there was so much in it. Just all the narrative techniques and everything, the music, the structure of the plot. And then you have Dracula itself, in which it was built. So I really loved it. I could see there was so much in it. That
was definitely what came across. Your passion for it definitely infected a lot of the students and made us very interested in discovering brand new films in the genre as well. And
I would have loved this class because I'm such a horror fanatic. I always have been since I can remember. There's so many classic sort of 70s and 80s horror films that scared me to death when I was a kid. And so, for you personally, Joseph, did you get into horror fiction in a literary form first, or were you more into horror films first as a child?
I suppose basically, as a child, I liked to read very early. That was the first thing. And of course, I used to go to the Harris Library in Preston. And of course, in the children's library, there wasn't much available, if you understand what I mean. But I gradually drifted into stuff like that. Yeah, you automatically find what you like to enjoy, so that's what it was. Really.
I've just started reading. I'm not a big reader, I must admit. I was kind of brought up on audiobooks as well as films. I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. And I recently got into listening to a lot of Clive Barker's books, and as well as Stephen King. And stuff like that, and like you say, when you like a genre, it's just wonderful to listen to as much as possible and to read as much as possible in that.
I mean, that's the difference between being a teacher and being a consumer, if you understand what I mean. When you consume, I consume fast. I'm always reading. I read now on my phone more than anything, believe it or not. Not even an iPad. It's on my phone, little phone in front of my face. And 3 weeks after I've read something, I can't remember a thing about it. I'm just absorbing it all the time, if you understand what I mean. But it's a different thing when you teach. Then you've got to have it at your fingertips. You've got to analyse it, And I remember at uni when I was studying lit, and I hated it to a certain extent. I had to write the notes and the margin and everything. And it was good in a way when I left teaching as well, not to have to think about, I've got to remember this, I've got to remember that, I've got to analyse that. I just enjoy it, I think you're also teaching yourself to write in a way. I think you're absorbing technique, as you actually read or you watch, you're learning things without realising it.
So you left your job as the head of film studies at Blackpool Sixth and focused mainly on continuing writing, obviously, and that's obviously done wonders for you. And the amount of people that we said that we're going to be speaking to you this evening, and we're very jealous about the opportunity.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of fans out there, Joseph, and a wonderful, a huge collection of books now. Was it 15 in the Spook series? Is that correct?
Oh, it's more than that, actually. Well,
oh, wow.
It's 13 in the first series. Then there's a little mini series with 3 in. That's like 16. And there's a new one out now, or 2 out, with Brother Wolf. It's a monk, a trained monk who's gone back. So you see the spook from a different perspective. It's an outsider, if you will, moving into the world of the spook. So yeah, we've got 18 now, and I've written the 3rd one, so it's 19. 19 Spooks books, or spin-offs. Like there's the Bestiary, which is like an encyclopedia. It's like the beasts of the world, and there's a short story called Witches. So we're talking really 20 books of Spook.
So this is a really fleshed out universe that you've created for yourself, and I'm really curious as to when you first put pen to paper, did you have any idea that they were going to be successful, or was it just something that you were writing for yourself and you thought maybe I'll try and get it published, or were you just writing it for your own amusement?
No, I wasn't writing for amusement. I was dead serious about it.
Yeah.
So I was, yeah. And I failed. I really failed big time to start with. I mean, I was doing a book a year. The one good thing for me was that I had an agent, and she stuck by me. She would deliver them sometimes, the manuscripts, in person. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you'd wait a year till the book had gone around all the possible publishers, and they'd all rejected it. You know. And then she said, "Well, I'm sorry," she said, I've tried at my best, and there's no one else to send it to. And I'd always say to her, it's a joke reel after a while. It's all right, Carolyn, because I've written the next one. So while she's getting rejected, I'm writing the next one. So, you were there in my last year, but had you been there 4 or 5 years earlier, while I was teaching, I was also getting up early in the morning. I used to get up about 5 o'clock, 5, 6 o'clock, and I'd write for an hour before I went to work. Wow. And I'd be writing a book a year and getting it rejected, but I was serious. I wasn't joking. It wasn't just for fun. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. Don't think that it was like a chore. I enjoy writing, but it was deadly serious. I wanted to be successful.
It's very admirable perseverance. And,
yeah, that's it. I'm really curious about the process of book to film. So can you explain the process of when you've written a lot of books by this point? I imagine you've probably written, about 10 to 15 books by the time you were approached for the film? Is that
no,
correct?
It's not true. Actually, you'll be surprised. They approached me too early, really. I think I'd have got a better contract if I'd have been a bit more advanced. I was approached in 2005. They optioned this, and I don't know, you'll probably know better than me because you're into film now. But I mean, is it 1 in 6 or 1 in 20 options get made into a film? I don't know. It's very small amount.
Sounds about right, yeah.
My agent wasn't taking all that seriously. She was a good agent. She didn't think anything really will come of it. It's like, take the money and run. That's the way. I never thought we didn't really think it would get made into a film. That was the point. Yeah, it was 2014, December in France, it came out for the first time. So, it's 2005, we're talking about all that pre-production, all that messing about. Wow. But I did meet people. They did talk to me a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah, well, that was my follow-up question, actually. I was going to say, how much involvement, first of all, did you want to have? And second of all, did they allow you to have?
I would have liked a lot of involvement. I would have liked to be consulted. Not that they would necessarily have done what I said, but I understand it's big money and they are in control. But at least they could have listened a bit more. I think 3 interactions with the film people, which was not even that significant, but they made me feel better. I didn't feel like they were there. But the first one was a London hotel where I was invited to London to actually meet. It was Basil Lowanik. I don't know if you've heard of him, Basil Lowanik.
Oh, yeah,
He's a British guy. Yeah, Basil. He's a British guy, but he sounds American because he spent all his time in Hollywood and everything. And Basil actually met me and he gave me a nice dinner. And I remember putting my suit on and my tie because I can't remember which hotel it was now, but it was a bit upmarket hotel. And there he is in his blue jeans and his little neck shirt. He was dead real American. You'd have thought he was an American, But he was a nice guy, and he did actually make me feel very positive about what was going to happen. Because I think at that point in time, there's a guy, again, you'll probably know, Matthew Greenberg. Matthew Greenberg had done the original script, and he just told me, he said, Matthew Greenberg's done a script, we like it. He said, and the good news for you, he says, it is very close to your book. I thought, wow, what more can you want, But of course, then time passes. And then they brought in more and more, they brought in several script writers after that, So that's what's happening, really. They keep changing it until it's beyond recognition. And then the other thing I got a phone call one day. I got this phone call. They want to speak to me, so I'm like on tenterhooks, like a week waiting for the phone call, which keeps getting postponed, And then all they say to me, Joseph, what century are the books set in? Oh, bloody hell, because they're not set in any century. I don't really use dates,
Yeah.
I think of it as sort of an alternative reality, an alternative medieval, bit more recent world, or a coal mines or a canal. It's not quite where the past was, And I said, well, not in any century, or we did it like that. It was sort of, they wanted a date, but same if you two were putting together a film, sure. You want the costumes, don't you? It's like 1612 was the Lancashire witch trials, and I think Salem was in the same century. Would you go for that year? And I said, well, if that's what you want to do, I'll go for the 17th century.
No. Yeah, close enough. We'll go for that.
Exactly. That's what I did. Yeah. And then there was a guy, Dante Ferretti. He was when we went to. Well, this is the next thing that happened. Best thing, really. They invited us to Vancouver, but it was a bit stingy in the sense that they did pay our flights. So I went with my publicist, and we went to Vancouver to watch him making the film. And It was all right, but they only paid for the hotel for 2 nights. It's true that. We didn't get the whole week. We stayed a week and we paid the rest ourselves.
Oh, wow.
This is it. This is the big budget people. 2 nights. It was a good hotel. And Jeff Bridges was staying at the same hotel. And I met Jeff Bridges on the set. We watched one day's full filming, or most of it anyway. And Jeff Bridges said to me, he was a nice guy. He said, I'll see you in the bar. But then I realised I would never see him in the bar because he went in a different entrance than we did. I think, what was it called? The Shangri-La in Vancouver, a big hotel. It's quite posh. Not nice. It was a nice hotel. It was all right. And we went into the front entrance, and we had our own bar, but he went in through the side of a special lift or something, so you never saw him again. That was it. But I watched him, and he was good in a way. The director, Sergei Bodrov. He actually he was there when I watched him film, and Sergei sat at the back, and Jeff Bridges had been doing the same thing over and over again. I can remember what he was doing. It was an action sequence quite late in the film. And he would throw himself back at a pillar and go, oh, with his head, and suddenly be throwing invisible blades and knives at him. And then he'd be looking up at the camera. Jeff Bridges was directing that film, I tell you. He was telling the camera what to do. He was pointing and everything. And then someone would shout out, Sergei. And he said, yeah, all right. He would just he'd give it a tick, But it was definitely Jeff Bridges actually doing the film.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's kind of really great that the star, was obviously, invested in it, and he wasn't being lazy. It was, it was the opposite. But, did you get the feeling, I suppose as the author, you must have been quite happy that it seemed it was in good hands, and, people were being very enthusiastic about it.
They were very confident, and I think Jeff Bridges did seem dedicated. I mean, for example, I don't know how many times you do a take. We don't know, do we? It varies from film to take one. Print it, we don't know, do we?
Yeah.
What? Almost to the point of boredom. When's it going to give up? When's it going to be right? But I suppose they've got all that footage they can then edit, can't they, and splice together. But yeah, he was almost fanatical in the way that he actually did it over and over again. Striving for perfection. And not only that, but happy to do it as well, I thought, and in control. He got up at one point. He's pointed. They had a camera on kind of a crane, which zoomed down to him. He came down towards his face and everything, and he was telling the camera how to operate and took out the lights and everything. You could hear him, And I must confess, they did treat us quite well. I mean, we watched, and I had a photograph here, and I've got a picture of myself next to Jeff Bridges, up on the stage. And they were okay. And I tell you one good thing they did. When I went up, and they all applauded, the cast and the people working on the film, and they said, Joseph Delaney, the source. I thought that was
yeah, too right. Well, that's the thing. It's interesting to hear you speak so modestly about it, because I'm sitting here thinking this is your property. This is like something you're doing. Damn right they should treat you with some respect.
I've got to say something on that. Can I go over that? About 2 years ago, maybe I would like it to be made into a TV series. Because yourself, when you make a film, it's sound bites, isn't it? I mean, they took whole pages of my dialogue and it became a sentence, if you look at it.
Yeah. In a series, you get the time to do it properly, don't you?
Yeah. You get the time. So that's what I'd like. I'd rather BBC did it quite honest, but Netflix, I'm not that fussed. I'd like someone to actually make it into a longish TV series. We were approached. I can't remember the name of the guy now. I think he's freelance now. He approached us about 2 or 3 years ago, and he was interested. He was going to do his own adaptation and work on it. I think it would have come to something. We can't do it because the film people, they're not negotiating. As far as we can see, 5 years after the film was first shown, which is, I said, 2014, whatever, it belongs to us again. You understand what I mean? It's ours to actually do with what we want and to sell again. If they don't want to actually make anything else, they should pay us. They should pay some more money. That's the idea. I've seen the contract. But you can't talk to them, these people. I mean, we've got people at Penguin, the publisher, Penguin Random, and they're trying to negotiate with them. You can't get any sense out of them. It's as if they're holding on to it. They don't want to pay anything else. They don't want to release it. They're just sitting on it. It's really strange. And it seems it's complicated because I don't know if you'll know the background, but the film, it was Legendary made the film, yeah? And then you sort of had Warner, and then Warner passed it on. Did you know it was written down, by the way, at one point? Did you know about that? It was going to be a disaster. They did a write-down on it, before they gave it to Universal. So it was already doomed. They decided in advance that it wasn't going to be successful, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, they spent about $95 million on the production. And I think I read somewhere that it made $112 million, something like that. It was big in China. It was the biggest film that month in China. They did a special promotion with the Chinese. They had their own poster with a dragon on it and everything. And it was big in Russia, but it flopped in the one place that films shouldn't flop, which is the North America, you know. And by the time when it came to the UK, I mean, we had our little film place in Southport where I'm living at the moment. I live near Southport. I'm still in Lancashire. And it was on the Rocky Horror Picture slot, if you understand what I mean. It was like one showing late at night, you know. So it's gone really because it got generally panned by the critics. On the whole, he didn't get good reviews. You know, he didn't do well. Though I'll tell you one thing about it, which is interesting. When I ask kids when I'm in schools and I'm talking to the kids about what they think about the, you know, I'll say, "Have anyone seen the film?" There's always a couple of little hands go up. You know, I'll say, "You can tell me the truth. What do you think of it?" Oh, it's all right. They like it. The kids like it. And I mean, I've got my own reasons for not liking it, but they seem to like it. And I don't know. It's strange. I mean, I've got my own, but they seem to like it. I mean, I believe it does quite well on Netflix as well. When it's on telly, it gets lots of watches. It's quite popular. But because if you look at it and don't try to think of it being, is it a great film? Well, no. But is it an entertaining film? Has it got lots of special effects in? Is it fun? Is it good for kids? And I think the truth is yes.
Yeah, definitely. If this came out while I was younger, I'd definitely be all over it. I'd be going to the cinema to watch it with friends and having a good old time with it. So, you know,
it's on film studies.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, did you hear the when you were talking, Joseph? I was thinking about the. Did you hear the Stephen King take on the book adaptations? Because I heard this a few years ago, and I think it might work for your situation as well. But a journalist asked Stephen King and said, you know, how do you feel about these filmmakers making these terrible adaptations of your books, you know, and destroying your books? And he said, no, my books are fine. Look. They're right there on the shelf.
Did you know that Tim Burton was going to make it at one time?
Oh, no, really?
That would have been amazing.
Did you not know that?
Oh, no.
He spent a year working on it. He really did, honestly.
Really?
He spent a year working on that.
Would you have been happy with that? Are you a Tim Burton fan yourself?
I would have gone with Tim Burton, yeah. It would have been a better film. I mean, my editor said to me, oh, you don't want Tim Burton to make it. I said, why? She said, well, when he's made a great film, he'll always think of it as his film rather than your book. And he'll own it, you know. That's what she said anyway. I don't know, but I mean, I would have liked a really good film like Tim Burton.
Yeah, I mean, just to see the aesthetics, because Tim Burton's got that such a recognisable visual style, that would have been great. So your words and his visual style, that would be something special. Yeah,
I mean, like Jurassic Park is a Steven Spielberg film, but you still know Michael Crichton wrote the book. I mean, you don't forget who the author is after a fantastic film's made.
It doesn't take away from your body of work in any way or shape.
I suspect that he's an author. He wants to make a film that he wants to make, and he probably couldn't get out of those people what he wanted to do, so he walked. I think each time the truth is, I know each time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. It's true. I see more in it. I can see that the essence of the Spooks world is there, you know. And I was reading before I came, I was looking at, they were thinking of doing a sequel at one time. I don't think they ever will now, you know, but they were going to do one. But I don't think they'll ever make a sequel.
You might not get a sequel, but you might get a reboot, Joseph. You might get a reboot in another 10 years.
Yeah. Some people come asking, get a Netflix adaptation, just what you need.
We'll see what happens.
The film you've wanted to speak about today, though, is Bram Stoker's Dracula. When I started watching it again, I was just brought back again into the film studies classroom, and you talking to us about the different transitions and the application of visual effects and how they didn't really use any like CGI or anything. It was all I think it was the shot of Dracula's eyes above the train and Jonathan Harker's diary, and you were explaining to us in the lesson, I think, how that was all kind of practically done. And yeah, it just immediately just made me smile, just like how vivid that memory is of you getting so excited about the effects of the film. And the film, it just blew me away in terms of how much I didn't remember and how visually impressive it is all the way through.
Have you read the book in recent years?
No, I have not, unfortunately.
We studied it in high school, and the main thing that I remember about it was the diary format, which I remember even at the time.
Letters and things,
letters and diaries and so on.
It doesn't really lend itself to action and stuff. It sort of slows the whole thing down. It's not an easy read in some ways, I would argue. That's the truth. I've got a horror book, which I've never actually submitted yet, and it's called The Legacy of Bram, and it's a science fiction book, and that features Bram Stoker.
Oh,
Bram Stoker
fantastic.
and his world, yeah.
Wow. So it's a kind of, would you say it was kind of a biographical account of Bram Stoker, or was it more like a fictionalized version of his life? Or
I can't say too much because somebody will be out there and think, oh, all right, that.
You'll have to kill us.
Well, I don't mean you will do that. It's science fiction, if you look at it, though it seems more like science fantasy when you read it. But you can enter into parts of Dracula's world, put it that way. You know, that's what it's about.
Oh, brilliant!
Very interesting.
Wow. On the well, back to the film. I'm really curious to know because I'm a bit of a reader. I do enjoy books, but I'm much more of a film fanatic. And in terms of this film, like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version, can you remember when you first saw it? Did you go to the cinema to see it, or did you rent it on video, or do you remember your first experience?
I watched it on DVD. I almost certainly watched it on DVD, and that was my favourite film, without a doubt. Of all the films I ever taught, when you're teaching a new group, you want to try and win them over if you can. You can imagine as a teacher, you don't want to bore them in the first lesson. I mean, you don't want to do British newspapers, which is another topic in media studies. That will bore them, certainly bore them to death. Don't do that. So then it struck me that was the film that worked best. It didn't take me less than a year to realise that was the one that had the emotional power, it had the visual power, and you could use it at the same time as you were actually able to it was a good narrative, a good story, a much better narrative in a way than the lettered form of the actual book itself. And you could actually win the students over and teach them a lot, if you will, about filmmaking and putting together a narrative using imagery. That's what was good for me.
Did you? Are you familiar with any of Francis Ford Coppola's other movies? For example, one of my favourites and probably one of my favourite films of all time is Apocalypse Now. Have you ever seen that?
I've seen that, yeah. I couldn't do that one because my friend and colleague Ron, he used to do that one. You sort of grasp your films, Yeah. Which one are you going to do? Which one am I going to do? So I would have liked to. He loved Apocalypse Now, yeah. And I've seen it, but he loved that film, and that was his thing. He taught that. That was his thing. He'd teach before.
You weren't allowed to touch that. That was his property.
No, but he couldn't touch Dracula, so that was all right.
Right. Yes, Dracula's got a pretty amazing cast. Like we've got Winona Ryder. We've got Gary Oldman in the key role, and Anthony Hopkins was dialed up to 11 in this one.
I like that line. Feed me.
And he just come out of the back of Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs and winning the Oscar in Hollywood, so he was like really hot.
He was fresh off Silence of the Lambs, wasn't he? Yeah. So this was a big one, and his performances really is. I mean, for me, this film is like everything's just dialed up to 11. I can't believe how much content there is in this film, how many edits, how much material, and what's his name? Gary Oldman's costume changes and makeup changes. The amount of different creatures that he becomes in this film, it's incredible makeup.
Yeah, there is a point, I believe, when Anthony Hopkins, I think he's writing or reading in a book, and wind is all around him, and he starts screaming and just like laughing maniacally. And I just thought, this is like
as manic, doesn't he? He's like
completely
on the edge of insanity.
It's looking like everyone's having such a fun time making the film, and like he's really enjoying the role. I feel like Gary Oldman's doing the same thing as Dracula as well. Like when he first appears in the big red robe and the white hair, he's hamming it up, but he's enjoying himself doing it. And I just I'm there for the ride.
You don't always believe these things that they talk about. One thing I read somewhere was that Winona Ryder had some kind of quarrel or dispute with him, Gary Oldman. That it was so intense, that probably the love scene when he's sort of riding around having an orgasm or whatever, and he's sort of, who knows? But I mean, she got offended at some point, I believe. There was something went on, I don't know what it was.
I had read that, yeah.
It must be very tense when you're working closely with people other than a film, yeah.
It's a very visual effects movies are notoriously arduous and hard to do, as I'm sure Seventh Son probably was at times for the actors in that. But I mean, I couldn't believe that it was 1992. So Winona Ryder's fresh off Edward Scissorhands. Speaking of Tim Burton, which is one of my favourite films as well. I think that's a fantastic film. And so she was fresh off that. Hopkins is fresh off of Silence of the Lambs. And Gary Oldman is yet to do...
it was his first Hollywood film, I believe. He hadn't done Leon. Leon was like a few years after.
Had he just done British films at that point?
He'd done stuff like Neil by
movies?
Mouth, I believe.
Or was he in Sid and Nancy?
Yes.
I think he'd done Sid and Nancy by that point.
Yes.
And obviously, so I really wish I'd seen it in the cinema, actually, because I think it's such a visual experience.
Yeah, same.
And no, it'd be a great one to see on re-release. There's a cinema in London. I don't know if you've been to it, called the Prince Charles, and it's in just off Leicester Square, and they specialise in playing older films, classic films,
Cool
and stuff
stuff,
like that. And so I might keep my eyes peeled and see if I can go to a screening of
would
it,
be great,
because it's a brilliantly visual piece.
I've seen Seventh Son in cinemas. The most embarrassing thing was the first time I watched it in front of a French audience, and it was journalists and the film people. So it was a special screening in Paris. So I watch it, and then they put me on a podium and asked me about the film. And I'd never seen it before, and I had to give my view of it. And at that point in time, I hated it, because it was so different. I was shocked by, I wasn't going to slate it, but I like it a lot more now. But at the time, I was stunned. What I needed 24 hours to go away and think about it.
Yeah, a private screening, surely.
But I had to stand up there after everybody's watched it and tell them how wonderful it was. And I didn't want to say that. I think they could,
You should have said, I don't speak French. I can't comment on the film. Sorry. Yeah. But that is what a situation. Oh my! I can't believe they put you in that position.
All the French speak English well, though. It's amazing how good they are.
Unfortunately.
But you're talking about the incredible cast. I mean, one thing I didn't really pick up on when I first saw it back in 2004 was Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that accent is a little muddled.
What was that line? What's that terrible line he comes out with?
I know where the bastard sleeps.
I know where the bastard sleeps.
The bastard sleeps. That's appalling, isn't it? It's terrible. Yeah.
It's such a shame because Keanu Reeves is such a bit of a cherished actor for me now. Like the fact that he's been in so many fantastic films and he's had a bit of a career resurgence recently with John Wick and all the other different films he's been in. Only for him to see, they wanted to cast Johnny Depp, I believe, and the production company said that they should cast more of a heartthrob, but
more of a heartthrob than Johnny Depp.
I know, okay. foolish. But Keanu Reeves he had gone through I think My Own Private Idaho and different films around that time, and this was the fifth film he was doing in a row, and he just had no energy for it, and it was such a big shame. It comes across
if that's the case,
yeah.
It seems out of his depth. He's just wallowing, isn't he? He's really, just not there. It's strange.
Yeah, and bless Winona Ryder, she's a great actress, but that English accent is always a bit of a rough one to go with.
I don't know what it is about the Americans, and the accents, but they sometimes they just can't get it right, can they? And poor Gary Oldman must have been stood there oh guys, this is not working. Maybe that's why they fell out. Who knows? No, it was really great to watch it again, actually, because I hadn't seen it for many, many years, and I did enjoy it a lot more. It's not one that I'd ever put into my sort of, top 10 series. Being a big horror fan, it never entered any of my top sort of lists of horrors. What it did remind me, Joseph, I don't know if you've seen it, but did you ever see the De Niro Frankenstein that came out about 2 years later? It was Kenneth Branagh directed it. Honestly, I mean, it could be the same. It's such a similar tone. It's really fast paced, really dramatic music, very melodramatic, the whole thing, and that really reminded me of that when I was watching it. And so, if you like this one, Joseph, I really recommend that you watch the Frankenstein.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, you'll love it.
It's
very, very similar stylistically. That's for sure. There's as much stuff works in this film as it doesn't work. I think there's a lot of failed stuff in this, but there's a lots of really... I think it balances out. So one scene won't work at all, then the next scene will be really powerful.
Yeah.
And one makeup won't look good, but then the next one, for example, when they come in, they break in just as he's attacking Winona, and he's got the full-on bat makeup.
Yeah.
That looked incredible, really scary. And then the werewolf one, not so good. And there's...
They try and do an Exorcist thing by superimposing his face onto it for some some frames as well, and it doesn't really work.
They threw
sometimes.
every visual technique at this in terms of, like you say, what would you call that when you superimpose the two images and stuff like that, the filter through. And but no, I mean, there was some wonderful visual stuff in it, and the costume design. It must have won something for costume design.
It did win about 3 Oscars, I believe. It was nominated for 4, but won 3. I think sound design and cinematography and costuming, and I believe, production side of things.
I think what it is as well, it's a lot. I think he's been criticised for this as well, but he's good. A lot of very powerful special set pieces. Set pieces are really good. But the narrative isn't smooth enough. Somebody criticised it for that, I think, really. I don't necessarily agree, but they are powerful. And that's what sometimes that's what my writing's like. Actually, I like doing set pieces. The action sequences or the horror bits.
I think there were two. There were The Lost Boys and Dracula were your vampire films that you
What other genre did I do at the time? Battered on the Western.
Oh, I don't think you did Westerns with us, unfortunately. But
I would have done if I'd have got you for a bit longer, if I hadn't gone at Christmas. But again, Unforgiven's one of my favourite films. Again, I remember that one. That was powerful. He's old. He's past his best, and he's a killer. He's good. He's a real killer. And give him a few drinks and he's back to what he was. He's got his speed and everything. He's so cool. Oh, it's a really good film, that powerful at the end. The shootout at the end.
You'll have to come back and speak about Unforgiven.
Yeah, we'll have you back on, Joseph, and you can tell us about Unforgiven. That'd be great.
So that's all from Joseph, Matt and myself today. So thank you very much for joining us. Joseph, would you like to plug your pluggables?
My pluggables. Wolfsbane. It was out, this month. It's the number 18th in the Spook series with a different hero, an outsider, and he's not quite the seventh son of a seventh son. He's got other abilities, so it's a little bit of a change, but at the same time, it's very much set. If you like the Spook's world, it's still set in the Spook's world. That's all I can say.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. If you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our channel and be sure to like this video as it really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by searching for the name Matt and Mike Bullfocus. Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
Say goodbye, Joseph.
Thank you very much.